Could I have your attention, please? I got yours.
Oh, Gary, lost my camera.
Do I have Eric? I do. Could I have your attention, please? I got yours.
Oh, Gary, lost my camera.
Do I have Eric? I do.
Hey.
Wonderful to have you all here and to be able to greet Carol and Rajan. And I wanted to share with you that they have been our friends for more than a decade. And we have joined them up on Lake Champlain, this gorgeous lake between New York and Vermont, every summer for over 10 years, where we have cruised up and down and had these bucolic times on that lake, which is just great. And during the time, what's that? That was a seagull. No, I didn't. Romani, you gotta wait. So we're delighted to have them here. Part of the beauty of that area is the Adirondack Mountains, where we have our camp.
Yes.
And Rajan and Carol are folks of really exquisite, as you can see, cultural development, and they have brought that to bear on my French, and have tried over the years to improve my French. But I'm a reluctant student. I've learned, for example, that the word for the wine is not merlot. They brought that to my attention. And then another wine, Beverly always cringes.
Can I have a merlot?
She always cringes over this other one. I've learned the word is Pinot Grigio and not Pinus Grigio.
Thank God that he's not here.
So it raised the cultural level. But the story that I want to share with you, some credit, I should explain that to you later, has to do with this community in the Adirondack Mountains called Ray Brook, which is a small little community that's been around since the beginning of time. And the folks who live in the Adirondacks tend to sort of stay in their area. And in this particular community, there was a young couple, at least young 50 years ago, Bertha and Ray. And they had lived in that community all their lives. And they had seen, for example, the old feed mill, which was an active feed mill many years ago, had been bought out about 30 years ago by a guy named Frank, who changed it to Frank's Bar and Grill. And they remained there, and Frank's Bar and Grill, which started out as just a bar, and typically in the Adirondacks, what do you do with a bar? You put a pool table in, right now the bar, and it tends to thrive. And then in time you add another room, and you call it, you know, it's a restaurant. And you might even stick some candles and some beer bottles, and it becomes a romantic retreat. At least that's what it was in Ray Brook.
Depends on how many beers you've had.
Sometimes you bring your own beer bottle. Well, Bertha and Carl had gone there for their 50th anniversary. Who was it?
Ray.
Oh, it was Ray? Ray and Bertha. I'm sorry. Had gone there to celebrate their 50th anniversary. It was a tender moment in their lives. And they had gone back into the room in the rear where the candles were. Now, there's only one cop in Ray Brook. His name, that's Carl. Yeah. Carl was there. Carl was there. Carl was the cop, and he was off duty, but he was in the room back in the table near where the couple were situated for their 50th anniversary, and he sort of was sitting there, and I must admit he was eavesdropping a little bit, and he heard the couple exchanging these endearments back and forth between each other about having been married for all of these years, 50 years, and how wonderful it was, and they were able to reflect with some nostalgia that Frank's Bar and Grill had been the old feed mill. And finally, after a few wines, is it Carl or Bert? Bert said to Mildred, you know,
Mildred!
Ray and Bertha.
Ray said to Bertha in the back, as he reached over to touch her hand and to secure their endearments, about how much the relationship had meant to him over all the years. Now, Carl is listening in because he thinks this is really kind of sweet. And finally, Ray screwed up his courage and said to Martha, "Do you remember the first time we made love? Was behind the mill over 50 years ago."
Was there a fence?
She was quite demure. She dropped her eyes and said that she did remember that, and that it was a source of great, great reflection for her, and great sympathy. And Carl really, and I apologize for the metaphor, screwed up his courage. He said, "Do you think we might try this again?"
Right.
Maybe she'd been with several men before.
Beverly should tell us this tip.
We're going to have a great punchline.
And it better be mine.
Bertha agreed that she had, but she was still, quite demure. This is the Adirondacks and all that. And so she kind of said to Ray, who had made this overture, "Why not?" Carl, who was listening, said, "Well, this is really kind of sweet." So they went around behind the feed mill. Carl had followed them around. It was at a discreet distance
He
to
wanted to keep
protect their privacy.
He was going to keep them safe.
And they got back there, they kind of creaked around the corner, and then they began the preparations for lovemaking. And all of a sudden, my God, it was like an explosion of passion. Their arms went akimbo, there were screams, and there were hollers, there was yelling. If I had some sound effects, you'd have some idea of what it was like. Sound effects! And there was just ecstasy. It appeared that way. After 20 minutes, they were exhausted. They fell onto the ground. Carl was astounded at what he had seen. He couldn't believe it. And he went over to Ray. Ray, I can't believe that. He says, "My God, what did you do?" He says, "They electrified the fence."
I sent you the email. This is your job.
That's some cotton picks.
Très bien, très bien. That's all I got.
Beautiful.
That's some cotton picks.
Très bien, très bien. That's all I got.
Beautiful.
That's some cotton picks.
Très bien, très bien. That's all I got.
Beautiful.
That's some cotton picks.
Très bien, très bien. That's all I got.
Beautiful.
I did not.
Ben, no, are you a Patriots fan or what?
Yes.
Ben, no, I got you on that, He calls himself a Patriot.
Oh, the shark has plastic teeth, dear, and he keeps them white with armor all. Dive, dive, dive.